Well, Debbie may not be a slouter, but I am. Proud of it. What an extraordinary privilege for me, Jim Brigadier, slouter extraordinaire, to address this robust body of citizens from the quintessential town of Middleburg, New York. It is so wonderful and great that we can enjoy this assembly, feeling the safety that our military provides and the freedom to do what we want to do. I want to thank the Rotary Club right at the beginning for inviting us to participate in this extraordinary ceremony. Between myself, Debbie, and my two sons, we have 68 years in uniform, so I think we have a pretty good idea of what's going on. I particularly want to commend those responsible for allowing the youth of Middleburg to participate. And hopefully this impact of patriotism that they feel will continue into their adult life. And 50 years, they'll be here like you, honoring the veterans that served. Now, sorry about the sunglasses, I forgot. They're prescriptions. Now you're all kind of fuzzy. That's good. I think that after the 30 years in service that I have a pretty good idea of the three different categories that veterans fall into. And I'm going to address them in just a moment. But I wanted to say something right up front. The veterans that I'm going to talk about, the veterans right up front here, the ones that are serving today, and particularly the ones that gave their life, are a very, very, very unique group of people. And I'll tell you why. They're the kind of people that step up and have the resolve and the commitment and the sense of responsibility to serve their country and even forfeit their life. Now, they don't do it because they have a political agenda. They don't do it because they're a Republican or they're a Democrat. They're a patriot. And that's why we enjoy the day that we're enjoying today. Many years ago, I had just gotten my coveted wings of gold, and I was qualifying in the F-4 Phantom jet, most sophisticated in the world. My duty assignment was Chu Lai, Republic of Vietnam, but before I went, I had to become aircraft carrier qualified. Myself and a buddy, Second Lieutenant Bob Bodenbach, not that you know him, but he's embedded in my heart, we were assigned temporarily to Naval Air Station Pensacola, Florida, to become carrier qualified aboard the USS Lexington, an aircraft carrier in the Gulf of Mexico. We went out to the Gulf, found the ship, looked like a postage stamp out there, made it anyway, and made successful traps on the aircraft carrier. Bob was the first one to be assigned the catapult on the starboard side, called the starboard cat. Catapult's that device that blasts you off like a slingshot and gives you the flying speed. I was assigned the port cat. As soon as Bob was triggered off the starboard side of the ship, I knew he was in trouble. The acceleration was too slow. He was supposed to go from about 0 to 130 miles an hour in 1.5 seconds. His acceleration was slow, he didn't have the flying speed, and the catapult merely threw him off the ship in front of the aircraft carrier, and the aircraft carrier ran over top of him. As I speak this very moment, and one of the reasons why we can enjoy the safety of this assembly this morning is because there are guys like Second Lieutenant Bob Bodenbach that, as I speak, is still strapped in the cockpit of that aircraft today at the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico. My point is this. He gave his life in service for his country. He was in combat. He was trying to get there. And he gave his life. Let me fast forward this video about 6 months. Now I'm flying out of Chu Lai in Vietnam. Getting a little cocky. I had a couple hundred missions under my belt. I was assigned a section leader to lead missions up north. One night the klaxon goes off, we sprint to our airplane, we get our mission over the radio. Marines are being overrun by Viet Cong, Marine Recon Battalion, lots of wounded, lots of dead. We had to help them out. We were successful. We found the target. We thwarted the Viet Cong attack. We saved the lives of many Marines. But the guy I was flying with, another good buddy, Dave Salisbury, you don't know his name either, pulled out too low. If he pulls off target, he says, "Jim, I'm hit, I have a fire warning light." I join up with him, and I get underneath his airplane, get under the belly, I could almost touch it, and I look up, and his airplane is bleeding hydraulic fluid and fuel oil and everything else. Plus, there was a fire smoldering in the burner section. Now I had to get him back, lead him back to the base at Chu Lai, 150 miles to the south. Would his jet make it? He had an option: jump out over the jungle at night, not a good option. Jump into the South China Sea to his left, shark infested. Or try to make it to the airbase before his jet exploded. We opted to go to Chu Lai. As he descended down, slowed his airplane down from 400 knots to 150, the fire went forward to his fuel tank because of the lack of relative wing over the wings. And as I flew behind him by a quarter of a mile, he's at 1,500 feet, this big flash in the sky. Need I say more? Again, as I speak this very moment, and we enjoy these freedoms, Dave Salisbury is still in Vietnam with his jet in a million pieces, splattered all over the jungle 5 miles north of the runway at Chu Lai. My point is this: Memorial Day is to honor those that have forfeited their lives. I give you but 2 examples in my particular experience. In essence, what I have said is metaphoric. These events are metaphoric. They have repeated themselves over and over and over and over again 1,000 times. You have the veteran beyond those that gave their life. You have the veteran that comes back to the United States, whether it's Vietnam, Afghanistan, or Iraq, and he doesn't have legs or arms, or he's badly burned, or he has no eyesight. The wounded warrior coming back here, and he's in his 20s, and he has no legs, and he has a wife that's maybe 22, 23 years old, and she's raising 2 small kids and trying to nurture this wounded Marine or this wounded soldier back to mental health as well as physical health. The stress on these families is extraordinary. Do you know what the leading cause of death was for military people last year? Do you think it was gunshot wounds? Do you think it was IEDs? Suicide. Leading cause of death for the military. You know, man, how many homes got foreclosed on for military people last year because the government keeps moving them. In a 30-year career, I had to move 19 times in 30 years, lock, stock, and barrel, because of training requirements. Well, in this day and age, in the financial situation this country is, you think they can sell their home just because the government says you have to move and leave it? 20,000 foreclosures on veterans' homes because they're fighting and defending us. So you have those that forfeit their lives, you have those that come back badly wounded, and you have those that seemingly, ostensibly, are intact. Maybe I fit that category. My wife would disagree when I say intact, at least mentally. By the way, that's a little joke, but I want to, for the record, the rank of colonel in the Marine Corps outranks commander in the Navy, just so you know that, okay? But I still have to empty the garbage. It's not right. Put stress in my life. I don't like it. Okay. The point I'm trying to make is this. There are a lot of stressors in people's lives, particularly those that come back, and they feel guilty because they're not wounded, because they have both legs, both arms, they can see, and they wonder why they made it and their buddies didn't. My good wife took me to a movie she thought I might like 3 years ago. It was called The Fog of War. It was a documentary by Robert McNamara, you know the name, Secretary of Defense during Vietnam. And basically what it was is a mea culpa apology for the war. You know what he said? He said, we saw what we wanted to see in Vietnam and we were wrong. And in being wrong, we killed 58,000 Marines and soldiers and 1.4 million Vietnamese people. I didn't need to hear that. When you go to war, you're called upon to do a lot of nasty things sometimes. You rain a lot of death and destruction with what you do. And then for the Secretary of Defense to say, you know, it was all a big mistake, it's like a hot poker in your heart. Take my word for it. Then, you've all seen this. I know there are people here that have seen this in the last couple of weeks. Robert Gates. What did he say on 60 Minutes 2 weeks ago in another newscast? In addressing the West Pointer Second Lieutenant's commissioning ceremony, he said, any Secretary of Defense, now or in the future, that would recommend to the President of the United States that we go to war in Asia or the Middle East ought to have his head examined. And as a veteran, you say, what? Here we go again? Ought to have his head examined, and this is coming from the Secretary of Defense. How do you think if you have a son or daughter that is being memorialized today because they forfeited their life, and the SecDef says, you know, we ought to have our head examined. Well, these are some of the stressors that you feel. Me, as a parent of a Marine veteran on multiple tours to Iraq, and those deaths that you see occurring, the stressors in the family today, and the disgrace that suicide is the leading cause of death, even though we're at war with two countries, my time is about run out. But I will ask you this. This is a beautiful day for us in a beautiful town. We enjoy safety. We enjoy freedoms because of that 1% of the population. 1% of the United States wears a uniform. The other 99%, those of us here, I suppose, we're getting a free ride. Let's at least be grateful and appreciative to all these sacrifices that our veterans have made for us so we can have this way of life. You're unique people as well. You know why? Because you're here. You got off your duffs and you came here to honor those people that have given us those freedoms today. God bless you, God bless the veterans, and God bless America.